This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 234.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? I have to say, this was one of my favorite episodes. I have a lot of guests on, and they all have amazing stories, great conversations. And initially, when I first started, I would talk to a lot of people. I'd be learning a lot. And over the last year, I'd have to pick one or two things that I can learn from conversation, make my own decisions, or make my own observations. All the conversations have been valuable, not variable, valuable in the sense that they confirm what I'm doing is right. Today's conversation is with two people that I respect a lot, Bill Belnave, Rob Vanstone. I hope I said his last name right. It was great conversations. They're SE leaders. This was all started from a post that I put on LinkedIn about leadership and the misconceptions, and why I've always wanted to be an SE leader, but there are these things that worry me. Like, am I going to be doing expense reports the entire time? Is it going to be, I want to be an SE leader to help people. Am I going to have the chance to help people, or am I going to be doing paperwork? So there's a lot of questions that I've had, and having Bill and Rob on the call just helped me so much because I re-listened to it. I was just listening to it again. So it was useful for me, and I really hope it's useful for you. And even if you're an individual contributor or someone aspiring to become an SE to begin with, there's a lot of information that you can take and you can apply to your role. Like if you become an SE, what are the biggest levers that you can pull to make your job most effective? That's just a little teaser of what's coming up. How about we jump into the show and you guys tell me what you think? Good evening or good night. Good night, Bill and Rob, although you're not going to sleep yet, but it is nighttime where you're at. How you guys doing?
Hey,
Good, Ramsey.
it's certainly dark here.
Yeah. In a couple of months, it will be very dark here and we're still in the afternoon. So I have Bill, I have Rob. Thank you for coming on. I would love for each of you to introduce yourself to the public, and let's go by alphabetical order. Bill, can you introduce yourself first?
Thanks, Ramsey. I am Bill Belnave. I've had various pre-sales gigs for, I hate saying it, but it's like 23 years now. And I recently decided to transition from doing the job to helping folks do the job. So I've been partnering a little bit with Chris White and his 6 Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineers, and doing a little bit with SE leadership and things like that. So yeah, it's been interesting and good.
Okay, Rob.
Hi there, yeah, Rob Vanstone. So I fell, like probably most sales engineers, into the profession by accident. Long-time automator of myself out of roles, typically, but when I found sales engineering, that was something that you just can't automate. Spent a fair amount of time as a individual contributor, and most recently had the privilege to lead a global team of sales engineers for a software company, Digital AI.
Nice. So we are gathered here today, gentlemen, mainly because I put a post on LinkedIn, not bashing managers, but talking about the role itself, how in my mind, it's all about helping people, but in reality, it's a lot more about paperwork. And you guys disagreed, or you agreed in some cases, disagreed in some cases. So I'd love to dig in a little bit more. Maybe we can start by defining what is an SE leader, and we'll start in reverse alphabetical order right now. Rob, you might want to go first.
Yeah, and I take issue slightly. I don't know that I disagreed with your post per se, but I was looking at it from the point of view that would be a sad world if that's what an SE leader was. And where I come from, my view of leading sales engineers, especially in an organization like the one I was in, where actually the sales engineers are very competent, highly autonomous individuals that can fight their way out of any hole that they find themselves in typically. That kind of leadership I didn't feel was something I recognized. So what I actually try to practice is removing obstacles that shouldn't be there from an SE perspective. And if that's expenses, if that's getting money in the bank for being out of pocket, then my role there absolutely is to kind of get rid of those problems systematically. So I don't want to spend my life doing that for sure. And again, I go back to automating certain aspects of my life away. But from the point of view of leading a team, I read a really good book. I should look up the author before name dropping, I guess, but herding cats is often used, but this is more like herding tigers, right? These are very willful and serious people who actually just want to get in front of the customer. So as a leader, just to sum up, I feel like it's removing any barrier from getting that done.
Okay. Bill, would you like to add to Rob, or define your own?
Yeah, no, I like that, Rob. I like it a lot. The whole notion of basically getting out of the way and making sure that your SEs have everything that they need. I look at it as the environment that an SE thrives in, right? And the things that an SE needs don't come natural to a corporation. Right. I mean, when you're an accountant, like, you got your desk and your working area and everything, and like everybody knows what an accountant needs, and everybody knows what this guy needs. The SEs are different animals, right? They're this hybrid. They're kind of sales. They're kind of technical. They're a little bit of both at the same time. Whatever. I think SEs have a unique set of needs, and I think it's the job of SE leadership to create the environment that allows the SE to be successful and thrive, and to give those things that a company doesn't kind of have naturally, right? HR doesn't know what to do with an SE. How do I promote them? How do I keep them challenged? How do I enable them? How do I do, right? SEs end up doing a lot of their own things. Sales ops kind of helps with the operational stuff, but they don't have everything. The sales enablement kind of helps, but they don't have everything. Onboarding kind of helps, but they don't have everything. The SE leader has to fill in a lot of those gaps so that SEs have all of their needs met. And to your point, Rob, they've got everything that they need to be successful. But I also think part of that, to your point of SEs being like tigers and willful beasts, SEs like to be challenged and they like to be held accountable. And I think that's the other side of the job of the leader. It's not just get out of the, let me get all of the barriers out of the way. It's also, let me make sure I'm pushing you a little bit. Let me make sure I'm asking you to improve. Let me make sure that I'm asking you to up level, because I know at the end of the day, like, you're competitive, you always want to be better. Let me make sure that I'm somebody's pushing you to do that, so that you feel that challenge.
No, that's a great point, actually, if I can jump back in, because some of that gets woven up into task tracking and activity monitoring and all of these things that I know Ramsey's got a special interest in as well. And I think the good leader is able to communicate where that is actually valuable. And for me, it's making it very transparent that, we want to align on a certain set of objectives within an organization. And so the leader needs to actually put that framework in place. I think he put it really well, to give everyone the opportunity to be as successful as they can be. And that's where I would want to spend my energies, is coaching and arguing for that, and having the healthy discussions on the why. So yeah, that's a really good point.
You're on mute, dude.
You'd think I'd know how to do this after.
Oh my God. How long have you been doing this for?
Well, right now the phone crashed, and now
I was gonna say there's a little bit of shuffling. Hopefully that that's okay, because we just said, Rob and I said some really cool stuff while you were off video and disappeared. You better not edit that out.
No, I'm not gonna edit that out. That was very good, and I will re-listen to it later when I actually have time. But some of the things that I heard, getting out of the way. So one thing that I had when I suffered with one of my managers is that although he was a great manager, he got out of my way to the point where he would check in on me every once in a while. I didn't know if I was doing well, if I was doing badly, and his excuse or his reason was, Ramsey, you're doing good. I have people that are failing miserably, and I have to focus my time on them. Right? And in my case, like I had to start a podcast in order to get better. So how do you balance putting out fires, taking care of the SEs that need help, and making sure that the SEs that the manager doesn't believe they need help actually get better and get what they need to improve?
You know, it's interesting. I remember reading a long time ago that a good manager spends most of their time with their good people and less time with the not so good people. And I always wondered at that. But I think it's true, Ramsey, because the thing is, like, if I lose a you, because I've been spending so much time trying to up level a person who's not really doing well, then I'm screwed, right? Because now I got nobody and I got to go try to find somebody to make them better. I then used to make it the job of guys like you to help improve the folks that needed it. Like, that's kind of my job at the end of the day. But somebody in your position who's doing really well, other SEs are going to learn as much or more from you than they're going to learn from me. You actually are in a much better position to do a lot of coaching than I am just as the manager. Doesn't mean I'm not going to put a time and attention to him, but if I give them to you, that gives you something a little extra on top of, just going and doing the normal job. And it actually ended up improving you too, right? Because anytime that you have to coach or help, it's actually helping you up your game as well as upping the person that you're bringing along.
That is interesting because I'm thinking of my specific situation. If my manager at the time gave this new SE, this green SE, the power to help other SEs, I probably would have helped them to do things incorrectly, right? Because I didn't know what I was
potentially.
Yeah,
potentially.
But that being said, maybe that way he's combining multiple people and helping them all at the same time, and he would have been able to see that I was doing things incorrectly and help me get better. Rob, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I do actually, because it's a really passionate area I have, and I think there's a lot of people have that natural instinct. I'm a green leader. I'm a green SE, that I can do more harm than good. Actually, 80% of what you would probably do would be good, right? And if you think about the challenge your manager had, he was spending all of his time trying to sort out the fires that needed sorting out. He could have had someone like yourself doing 80% of that work perfectly adequately, and then had a lot of time to spend coaching you on the 20%, and that will be the bit that would have developed you. And again, I don't want to go into a very specific and personal example, but I'll echo Bill's comments. I think if we can actually lead by example, lead from the front, and show what it is we're trying to achieve as a group, people like yourself would have stepped up and said, I can help here, right? There's clearly a problem to be solved. And that's the opportunity that develops more leaders. And again, that's what I see as a really important part of the role.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really push back on anything you've said. I feel like my job today is to push back and play devil's advocate, but based on what you just said, the devil has really nothing to say.
Well, it's all good. It's all good when we're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
But when we're actually splitting our time between working with customers, which is where I'd actually like to focus all of our attention, and getting our customers to adopt our solutions and be more successful with our products than they would have been without our intervention, there's those other plates you have to keep spinning, and it's easy to sit from these sidelines, especially on a Thursday night with a glass of wine, and say, well, I would do X, Y, and Z. We're ignoring quite a lot of the structures within companies when we just have those observations.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm thinking about my current situation because that's the only thing I really know. There's a lot of pressure from sales, right? If someone's failing, if an SE is failing, and it could be the SE is not failing, it could be that the salesperson's failing and they're blaming their SE, and now there's pressure put on the sales engineer manager to take care of that situation. He also has like 3 or 4, or she has 3 or 4 other problems that they need to put away. I mean, I don't think any SE wants to become an SE manager to do that. I mean, they want to enable their team. They want to help their team. So how does one go from, okay, I want to enable my team, to, oh my God, I have to put out 16,000 fires in one day and approve 6 expenses per hour. Like, these are all the non-fun stuff that I think about. Like, how would you have taken care of a situation like that? And that's a very general question. And I don't
Yeah,
know.
it is. But I look back at the problem statement, and it describes a view to me that suggests you're on an island, right? You've suddenly got this responsibility to be an SE leader. One, you have to figure out what that is. Two, you have to make sure that your team are serving their primary function, which, you know, the biggest stakeholder is arguably sales. They're certainly the loudest. And, you know, that's not really the way I would look at it. I would look at it as, I'm a leader within an organization where we're all trying to pull together to achieve the same outcome. I have peers across the organization that are fighting the same things and having the same troubles I am. And so rather than be very insular in my own silo of sales engineering, I should be looking across my peers and actually sitting down with them, articulating where I think the things are going awry, and then coming up with prioritized solutions to deal with them. And again, it sounds easy. The structure within the organization needs to be there to allow that to happen. And I think that's where personally I could see a lot more happening, or should happen there, because people do look in, think they're doing the wrong thing, or think that they have to solve this whole problem on their own, and that's where that conversation goes for me, from what I heard.
And it's interesting because that, whatever you said right now, also applies to individual contributors, where a lot of SEs are stuck trying to solve the world's problems on their own without getting anybody involved, thinking that they're in a silo.
Look, I think when you first step into a role, especially the management role, there's absolutely that a period of time where you are 100% drowning. You're underwater. Like, it's just because the only way for you to know what to prioritize is to attempt to do everything and touch as much as you possibly can. And as you're doing that, what you're able to do is figure out, okay, there are some macro levers that I can pull, that when I pull them, the micro stuff kind of slides into place, right? So, you know, to your example, Ramsey, of like, you step in and, hey, I want to coach the SEs, but you know, oh, I got to get in front of customers, and reps are complaining about this, and how do I take care of that? And this SE needs this. Like, you start to attack some of those tactical things, and you get a quick lay of the land about, okay, which of these tactical things can I simply kind of let loose, and which of the things do, when I address them, actually give me an opportunity to do some more strategic stuff. Reps are complaining. Well, you know what? Me as an SE manager, having a good relationship with the sales reps that we serve, that's a really good thing, right? That having good reputation capital with those guys, that takes you a long way, right? So, yep, okay, I'm gonna spend a little, I'm gonna invest a little time in those guys, and make sure that my relationship with them is good and with the sales leader is good, because if those guys are happy, that buys me a little bit of time and breathing room, so that I can now kind of get to my team and figure out, like, where is the issue? Is it really my SEs? Is it the complaining? You know, is it the reps aren't doing the right thing? Maybe the entire sales cycle is just off, and we should look at things differently. But I gotta be able to buy myself a little bit of time to do that. So, you know, I mean, I remember when I took my first SE gig, or manager gig, it was because the manager, the guy that I worked for, didn't want to do it anymore because he was tired of all of the reps complaining and all the things that you just described. I'm just a scheduler and I'm just putting out fires and all of that kind of stuff. I didn't even want the damn job. And I happened to send an email to the VP at the end of the year and just say, hey, a couple things, love being an SE here, a couple things that I think we could improve. He's like, you're going to take the manager role because this is the kind of thinking that I'm like, oh man, what, it's like I open what that I get rewarded for opening my mouth and trying to do a good thing. But I was blessed because he really stepped in and helped out. But it was really a matter of me. There were 2 sales managers that were really vocal. Once I developed a bit of a relationship with them and they saw that I was willing to work with them and I want, it was all about mutual success and all that. It bought me enough time to be able to circle back with the team and be like, guys, what's going on? What do we need to do? And get kind of the other side of the story and smooth things out. But there was a couple of months, like a quarter, where I was just like, I felt like I was on the phone from 8 a.m. till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, just dealing with very reactionary stuff. But it gave me the opportunity to kind of get a lay of the land and to be able to step back and say, okay, now that I've been in the trenches, here's what we're going to do. And because I had been in the trenches, you get a little credibility.
Yeah, I have some questions, but I want to make sure, Rob, do you have any follow-up on that, or should I ask my questions?
No, I think Bill summed it up very well. I think there are a million tasks that will never all get done, but you do need to actually understand what they are and which ones can't. And I think, again, I go back to working with your peers across the organization. That's how you get more information about, well, what's really moving the needle for us as a company. And again, getting a really good relationship with the sales rep absolutely is crucial. There's nothing that will shorten a stint as a manager than not having those people on your side. So a quarter though, Bill, that's pretty good going for sussing it all out and becoming
I didn't have everything solved at that point. I had breathing room, Rob. I had some breathing room so that I could go figure some stuff out. I was able to get my head above the water. Yeah. I wasn't swimming yet, but at least I could get oxygen.
All right. So let's say, right, you're a leader, you're trying to hire an SE leader, and someone like me comes to you and says, oh, I don't want the job because of whatever we've been discussing. Oh, it's more of a paper pusher at this point. You're just approving expenses and all that. What would you say to someone who's thinking like that, or would you even want to hire that person? But let's say you do want to hire that person at that point. And then what is the first lever beyond building good relationships with the account managers that they can pull to help set the micro shifts in place? Rob, would you like to?
Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with the question because this guy's coming to interview for the leadership role, but then saying he doesn't want it because he doesn't want to push paper. And
let's take Rob for an example. He didn't want the role, right? And your manager, Rob, convinced you that you should take the role somehow, even though you did most of the work. Like, he sent an email saying,
"Oh, Bill's example, yeah, okay, yeah."
That's my story, basically.
Yeah, and again, I think that education of what being a leader and a manager, that to me is a massive mentoring opportunity, because I think most people that would want to do the role should be looking past that aspect and looking at what's going to motivate me here. For me personally, the reason why I leapt at the chance, and it was a chance of leading a team of sales engineers, was because I wanted to scale what I was able to do and take on a new challenge. And the last thing on my mind was approving expenses. Day one, when I took the role, I had 42 direct reports. And so that first quarter was a very fast moving one, where I very quickly figured out that doesn't work. And keeping a flat structure, which all of the companies that I was familiar with were very good at selling. We're a flat structure, a flat organization. We needed some structure there just so that we could give sales engineers the respect they deserved, and having some level of management themselves. So that paper pushing was to start with the last thing on my mind, but then very quickly became the real thing, because I had to go and talk with HR. They became my best friends. So as I understood who I had on my team, as the company understood who we had in the company on my team, there's a whole load of things we could talk about there, but you have to sort those out. But once you do that and can look past the bookkeeping element, then you start to get into thinking, well, what is our goal? What are our objectives? And that to me is where I wanted to be. And that to me is where, lots of organizations really need to get very clear on across the whole organization. And so that's why I lent on the leadership team and became someone who could also be lent on to have those discussions.
I love that.
So that's what I would describe to this person wanting the role, is look past that. That's the stuff that, you have to sort out, but someone needs to, own the process behind that.
Okay. And why did you want to own the process behind it?
I wanted to make sure the process got owned and worked well, so it didn't become a discussion point every week. We weren't talking about expense policies, and we weren't talking about how to file those things. That's as far as I was interested in those aspects of the role, right? To minimize them and move them out of the way. That's where my influence was felt, because I would represent the team. And again, all of the people in the go-to-market functions probably had a slightly different HR setup than maybe the core engineering teams. And we had to form those, but I had to keep my eye on that ball to get it so it wasn't a conversation anymore. That's as far as my interest went. What I really wanted to get to is, how do we actually represent our organization with our customers in a consistent and high value way that lands us the deals we want? That's, to me, what being a leader was about. And that's where I could engage the senior sales engineers and actually take their wisdom and share it across the rest of the team. That's what I was looking to do.
Okay. So from
awesome.
both of you, I heard like the biggest lever pretty much is developing relationships, whether it's with the account managers or HR, whoever is causing the biggest problem at the time, or whoever can help solve a problem at the time.
Your success in the management role is totally predicated on the amount of support you're going to get, right? I mean, I think it starts with you making a choice about where you're spending your time. If you want to be an administrative manager, like, you're essentially choosing that's going to be the thing that you want to do. If you don't want to do that, you absolutely have the ability to choose and say, you know what, guys, your expense report's going to get approved at the end of every week, or at the end of every 2 weeks, or like, I'm going to spend 2 hours a month doing that stuff. That's not what I want to do. But that doesn't work unless you have the support of your manager, of HR, of the sales team that you're working with, right? I mean, I think as an SE manager, you learn really quickly that sales a lot of times has more power over what you do than your own manager does, because then at the end of the day, like, they're your customer. That's who needs to be happy. So that's where that's why, to me, it made sense. Like, that's the first relationship that I need to build and make good, is make sure that I know what the sales guys want and how to make them happy. Otherwise, I just, I won't be successful, because those guys will push me out and go find somebody else.
So sometimes I find like, it's not necessarily the best candidate for SE managers that become the managers, but those who have been there for a while or are good SEs, and which leads to them becoming SE managers and then just falling into the trap of becoming what did we call it? Like, just paper pushers at that point, because
admins,
they're admins, they're overwhelmed, and they don't even have the time to self-reflect and figure out like, oh crap, I need to do this better. And most companies, I would hope they have a senior manager who would be able to help them. But what would be your suggestion to those who are in that position and they feel like they're on their own?
Yeah, look, man, that's tough, period. If you're in a situation where you want to be more than just an expense report approver, but you don't really have a support structure around you from your management and sales and HR and all that to do that, it's a tough spot to be in. I mean, you can certainly self-educate. There's a lot of great books. There are a lot of great resources. There are people like you. There are people like, Chris and me and Pre-Sales Collective and all that. Like, so you can go and help yourself out. But at the end of the day, you have to realize in a situation where you don't have management support or sales support, it's a very short road.
Yeah, I like that. Like, I was talking to someone today who I think would be the first SE leader within her organization, and she doesn't have anybody internally to talk to, so she went and talked to a lot of people externally. And like, it's a community now. We're not just a separate bunch of people.
Yeah,
it's a community. We're about to move to the not so fire round. Rob, I wanted to give you the chance to either like add on to what Bill said or take us off on another tangent. Doesn't really matter. Just, this is your opportunity to say whatever it is that you want.
No, yeah, you touched on it with your person within your organization. Actually, that leadership role can be quite a lonely place, especially if you've risen up through your own organization and become put in that place, because at the end of the day, you've got to change and evolve from being, or I wouldn't say evolve even, but change from being in amongst all of your friends, the people that you've had those battles with, and you've got to start thinking further ahead in the future. You've got to start thinking about things that are slightly wider than just the day-to-day you had before, and you have to actually be equitable across your whole team. You have to think about opportunities, especially if it's a global role, opportunities around the globe, whereas your view was a lot narrower before. And if you have not got that strong place where you can learn and grow and learn from other leaders, whether it's your manager or another manager in another part of the organization, you're almost reinventing the wheel and figuring things out for yourself all the time, and you don't even know, you're second guessing yourself every other day, and that is quite a hard place to be. And we are fortunate, right? We do have great resources, great communities in things, as Bill said, the Pre-Sales Collective. There are leadership groups as well that have formed up. So if anyone does hear this and feels like they're in that situation where they're pushing paper, no one's listening, they're sort of not with the people that they grew up with in the company, but they don't fit anywhere else either, then let's have that sort of conversation. Hopefully that resonates with some people, and we can have some consensus of what steps to take, because it will vary from organization to organization.
Well, thank you guys for that. It is time to move on to the not so fire round. I usually say these are the same 4 questions, but mainly for you, I've changed it up a little bit. I don't know if you've heard them before, so it doesn't really matter. So question number 1, and Rob, we'll start with you. What do you believe is your superpower?
I am not afraid to talk to anyone, and I am pretty humble at understanding, when I need help and when I need to do to make changes. So I would say my superpower is getting across to different parts of the organization to find my answers. And I think it's a superpower because a lot of people get very surprised at who I know within my organization, and whose support I get when I need to have decisions made and so on. And it's usually because of conversations and actually empathy with the struggles those people have as well. I mean, everyone's fighting very similar battles is the thing I've learned. So I would say my ability to communicate across an organization is my superpower.
Nice.
Dude,
Bill, you've had time to think about it.
I know. It's like, it's almost harder. I'd rather just kind of get it off the cuff. No, look, I think my superpower, if I look back at my career, I have the ability to get people fired up about stuff. I can generate a lot of energy, and I think that's helped me get things done for my teams in the past that might not have otherwise happened, because it was a little outside of the box, or it was a little, hey, we haven't done that before, or I don't know. And it's like, yeah, but I can tip it over with a little bit of my excitement and get people fired up and like, oh, okay, that's great, let's go do it. And I think a lot of times those same people then a couple weeks later are like, crap, I wish I hadn't said yes to that. But in the moment, like, I can get you fired up and you get excited about it. So we go do it. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Question number 2. We'll start with you, Bill, this time. What do you believe is the biggest challenge for SE leaders? Or what was your biggest challenge as an SE leader?
You know what? There is a huge lack of enablement, training, whatever structure. When I became an SE manager, there was no Vive, and there was no like, how do I measure my team? How do I define good? There was none of that kind of stuff. And so there was just a lot of like, we were all kind of figuring out as we go. And I think there's still kind of a big gap. There's a lot of focus on how do I enable SEs. There's not a lot of focus still on how do I enable SE leaders. How do I create and train and groom and maintain good SE leaders?
All right. And Rob, beyond managing 42 direct reports, what was the biggest challenge that you had as an SE leader?
Actually, one of the things Bill brought up, the kind of opposite of that in some respects. There's a lot of data out there, and there's a lot of expectation that data means something. So with tools like the ones that were just mentioned, we start to focus on measuring things and seeing if they have an impact. And by the way, I'm all for measuring activity and finding out the things we are doing are of value, right? But at the same time, you've got to get that information, and there's so many ways sales engineers interact with the sales process. You can get blindsided by false data and so on. So you're then tracking things for the sake of tracking things. So for me, that the hardest thing is to understand what's really important and being able to focus on the doing activities that are adding value to that sales process. And with the breadth of skills we have and the talent we have, and the fact that it's fairly ephemeral, people can move around quite easily. You've got to keep people interested and focus on the things that matter, and that's choosing those is hard.
Okay. All right. Question number 3, and this is the same question I've asked so many times. Is there a book or resource you would recommend to aspiring SE leaders?
Well, it's kind of like Desert Island Discs in some respects. You're not allowed. You're going to get the Bible, whatever, and in fact, the Sales Engineering Bible, the Sales Engineer's Handbook, absolutely still well worth a read. It's being revisited. It's being rewritten. I'm not going to steal Bill's thunder. I know that he's got some good advice, but I really did like, and I actually. Found the book Herding Tigers: How to Manage Creative People. It is by Todd Henry. I thought that was a really good read, because what it does and what it did for me is, you're not a school teacher, right? This management role, you're not there to tell sales engineers how to be good sales engineers. What you're there to do is recognize what good looks like and promote the hell out of it, and spread that like wildfire within your organization. And that's not about micromanaging. That's about getting people to do things that maybe is slightly uncomfortable for them. And this book is a really good one.
Nice. Bill?
I got to read that now. I had not heard of it, Rob, and so thank you. I love adding to my list. and Ramsey, I'm going to totally dodge the question because in my mind, there's not one book. Like, I think one of the things, if you want to be a great leader, you should read every day. You should be jamming through as many books as you possibly can. And the ones I think that helped me the most when I was an early leader it's stuff like the classics, like The Effective Executive, like so Peter Drucker, but then Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last, Infinite Games, Start with Why, Kim Scott, Radical Candor. Like these were all Andy Grove's book, Measure What Matters. I mean, these were all things that I may not have adopted everything that was in there, but they were inspirational. They were like, got me fired up about being a manager and a leader. And I think that's really something that you need. I mean, it's always good to have, like I said, support from all the folks around you, but you got to be able to kind of give yourself a little injection of enthusiasm. And when you're reading the right stuff all the time, like that's a big help.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Or listening to, as we discussed earlier, if you find yourself in the car,
fair enough.
Some of these books that you mentioned, if the reader is good, get you fired up. It's nice.
Yep.
Have you listened to Extreme Ownership?
Yes. A very gravelly voiced version.
Yes. So,
I have not, but I've heard of. Is that the one written by the Navy SEAL guy? Yeah.
Navy SEALs, and they read the book.
And they read the book, yeah.
By the end of the book, you feel like you're a Navy SEAL. Obviously, you're not. So don't try anything crazy. But you feel like it.
Yeah. That's on the list. Yeah.
Yeah. Last question of the not so fire round. Is there a habit you're working on today to improve either in your personal or professional life? And Bill, do you want to go first?
Yeah, it's funny. You and I were just talking about it, and it's that ability to organize your time. I admit I suck at it. And I think having been in management for, 15 years or so, you get used to people basically taking up your time, right? In all these meetings that you're supposed to be in. And so I always got stuff done in the gaps. And that saying, like, the less time you give somebody, the more they get done. Like, I was totally that. I was always like last minute, and like I got that stuff done in the gap. And now that I'm in a situation where I'm not in back-to-back meetings and I need to get stuff done, especially longer term projects and content creation and things like that, I'm like, man, I am bloody awful at managing my time and being disciplined and doing the right thing. So that is 100% what I'm working on right now.
If you want to brainstorm some ideas, we can talk after.
Absolutely. I could use the help.
Yeah, Rob? I definitely fall into that category. The habit I'm trying to get into is definitely a personal one, and it's to get more sort of well-being into my life. So I've gone from spanning the EMEA day and the US day, which is brutal anyway, even in the non-Zoom world. But when it's Zoom back to back, you find that you deprioritize, or I've deprioritized myself, exercise and things like that. So I've been using the time I've had to get out more, get out earlier. So I've still get up very early. I've just started reading a book actually called The 5 a.m. Club. I don't know how close I'll get to that. But there's certainly things I do get done better in the morning. And then I'll feel less guilty about taking, say, a 10 o'clock, go and play squash or do some fitness just to get the heart beating. So that's the habit I'm trying to form again.
That's a very good habit. I'm trying to do the same. All right, gentlemen, we're at the end of the show. Was there a question you were hoping I was going to ask you that I did not?
No. I came into this pretty green. Again, I wanted to talk about that leadership role. I do feel that there's definitely still a need to get some cards on the table. I think that's it. Everyone feels like they should have all the answers, and especially if they're either looking for leadership roles or being placed in a leadership role, they now have that responsibility and therefore it rests on them. So I did want you to ask about, well, how does that work? And you did. So there wasn't anything that you could have asked otherwise.
It's I send a newsletter every Friday. I call it the 411, which is basically 4 random ideas that pop in my head. And one of them is the more I learn, the more questions I have. So, like I don't know, I'm pretty sure I didn't come up with it, but I'm going to take credit.
Well, don't be offended by me not having a question. I've learned a great deal, so thank you.
Oh, I'm not. I'm talking about myself. You might know everything. I don't know. Bill,
he knows a lot.
Good. Well, all right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for hanging in there with me while my camera stopped working. Not to highlight that again.
Now,
Right.
as a good SE, you kind of took it on the fly and kept things rolling. So nice work.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep,
We'll
absolutely.
Take care, guys.
All right.
And that's the end of the show. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Rob, for coming on. Again, this was an amazing conversation, at least for me. And I'm sure it'll help a lot of people out there who are in the same spot as me, wanting to become SE leaders or wanting to become SEs to begin with. So I really appreciate it. And I want to know what you think. Like, you've listened to the podcast. What are your thoughts? What are your takeaways? I actually might create a blog or video just based out of this call, because there was so much information packed into 40 minutes, 50 minutes. So yeah, I'll just leave it here. What did you think? Again, if you haven't left a review and you like this specific show, do me a favor, go on iTunes, go on Google Play, wherever you want to go, post a review. This helps me. It shows that I have a useful podcast that other people can then listen to and know about. And I would highly appreciate that. So let's just leave it there. With that, I am signing off.